Well, you missed a lot so far this class. We heard a stirring speech about the dangers of remote learning. We heard a very impassioned speech about DCFS and the dangers of DCFS and how they're trying to fix the system. I had a coughing fit and had to leave the room. It's been a day here in Political Science 119, I'll tell you that. So we're finishing up looking at constitutions. In case I didn't mention this, the test will open this next Wednesday, which is the 8th.
No.
Can someone tell me what next Wednesday is?
Next Wednesday.
Second.
The 2nd? Okay. March 2nd. And when's a week from that? When's the following? I'm sorry, Garrett. You just put it back in your phone.
9.
The 9th. And it'll close March 9th. All right. On this test, there will be 3 things covered. All right. The Illinois Constitution, that PowerPoint. Federalism, that PowerPoint. Those 2 things are big topics in and of themselves. So that is more than enough for a test. And we're going to throw the PowerPoint I just made available on constitutions on there as well. There is just a little bit on here. You're not, the repeat stuff on the Illinois Constitution that you're going to come to maybe about a quarter way through, just disregard that. Everything that is not about the Illinois, Constitution on this is fair game for that test. I don't think I mentioned that last time. But you'll have 150 minutes to take it. You will only have 1 attempt to take the test. Only 1, all right? Since I'm giving you a week, I'm you gotta have a real good excuse, like somebody set me on fire or something like that. If you're emailing me March 9th at 11:50 p.m. with problems, well, I'm in bed at that point. So it's your problem at that point, not mine. So if you have a problem, just don't wait until March 9th to take the test, maybe somewhere earlier.
How many questions is on the test?
I haven't written it, so I don't know. Like I said, this is the 3rd time I've taught this class. And stupidly on my part, I never saved anything. Never ever, because...
It keeps it fresh though, and you can learn the trends.
Yeah. Because this is the class my teaching chair prefers. So normally she teaches all the sections of this, but we needed an on-campus person to do a section, and I'm the one who's able to be on campus. So this is the 3rd time, and I've mentioned all this, yeah. So no, I haven't written the test, but I had you fill out the study guides. I would look at these 3 PowerPoints. I would also look at the study guide, because I might ask you a certain 4 essay questions that come from somewhere on something you filled out recently. Who knows? Yes.
Now, will it be multiple choice?
I typically do multiple choice, true, false, multiple answer, meaning there's more than one answer. You can tell, it's just a common sense thing. If I ask, what are 6 enumerated powers? Well, there are 6 answers. I hope common sense would dictate to you that there isn't only one answer to that question. All right? If for some reason I make a mistake and I select multiple choice instead of multiple answer, well, then that's on me and we'll fix it. we'll fix it later. All right. I don't tend to do that, but any other questions? I think this is pretty clear. 4 of you at least, 3 of you at least have your study guides to turn in today, I hope. No?
Mine's finished, I still haven't, I was trying to print.
All right.
things at once.
We have a bunch of it done, but it's not fully done.
It's not fully done. We'll get it fully done and turn it into me on Monday. I'm not going to take it after Monday. My leniency has its limits. All right?
As it should.
Yeah. I think I'm a pretty lenient guy. I just, it's just,
Far more lenient than your peers.
well, thank you. But even I am only going to wait so long for something. So, constitutions, we're just going to finish this up. We're not going to get to Section 5. Obviously, we already covered that in excruciating detail. So, constitutions are very different across states. According to the textbook, constitutions reflects the state's historical experiences, political culture, its geography, its notions of what makes good government. Hey, that might be something that I would put on a test. Hint, 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 hint. And the process here. So before we adopted the Articles of the Declaration of Independence, what am I saying? The Continental Congress said states create governments to replace the temporary governments that we had under the colonial provisions. We had colonial charters, royal governors, things like that needed to go away. And it did. States had conventions for the purpose solely of drafting constitutions, and those were based upon the will of the people, the direct authorization of the people. They had to be ratified by the voters after they were done to get on the books. So what we were looking at, distribution of power and limits on government power. Now, what were some of the problems? What were some of the things, if you had to take a guess, the 5 members of my studio audience today, what were things that these people back then would have been worried about? Let's start maybe with the executive branch. What would have been a problem they would have foreseen with the executive branch?
Or too much power with the executive.
Too much power. Yeah, the royal governors exercised nearly unchecked power. So making sure the executive was properly reined in, yes, that would have been a worry. What about the legislature? Or did you have something else you were thinking of?
Oh, no, I was just gonna say a lack of human rights.
A lack of human rights.
Maybe something involving taxing too?
I didn't hear you, Garrett.
Maybe something involving taxing too, like laws about taxing, taxing was big back then.
Laws about taxes, yes. Certainly that might have been something that was of concern. Maybe the legislature, they were trying perhaps to get not perhaps, I'm telling you what they were doing. The legislature needed to be able to exercise sufficient power without interference from the executive or the judiciary. What might have been a concern with the judicial branch when it comes to distribution of power and limits on government power? Michael?
Them overstepping their bounds and exerting too much power.
How so?
For example, they may try to declare the executive branch unconstitutional.
I could see that. Yeah. Okay, good. So we could compare state constitutions and overall design. They're basically looking at the U.S. Constitution and saying, okay, we like this, we don't like this, we'd like to change this, we'd like to add this on, but it's basically all the same. You go to Indiana, Iowa, wherever, you're going to look at a similar constitution as to what we have in Illinois. Not exactly the same, but similar. They were concerned with the power of the executive and provided for the annual election. Every year they had an election of the governor by the legislature. So the legislature would pick out the governor yearly. Now that's obviously changed, but they were very worried about the power of the executive. Why? We had just fought a big war to throw off the yoke of tyranny that we saw in King George III. The royal governors were not popular people in colonial America. And Rob, you had something to say.
Oh, I'm good.
Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Okay. Michael?
They
Go
kind of seem like prime ministers than governors, as they were selected by the legislatures, right? Because we see in Canada and the UK, like the majority party of the House of Commons appoints the prime minister.
This is true. Not so much appoints, but the leader of the largest party
Right.
in the Commons is automatically just kind of becomes the prime minister, the leader of the party. Yeah, and remains so as long as he or she can command the confidence of the House. Yeah, so there were term limits on the governor. So yeah, I think, yeah, maybe a prime minister would be a comparable thing we could look at here. A limited chief executive power with expanded legislative power. So everybody but Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Vermont had 2 houses in their legislature. The members in the upper house served longer terms, again, copying off the federal government. Most states lowered property qualifications, so you didn't have to own as much or any property to vote at this point, but it still only applied to white men. African Americans were prohibited from participating, except when we get to the Reconstruction era and the passage of the Reconstruction Amendments, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendments. And once that was over, once Reconstruction ended, we had Jim Crow laws that separated the races and denied African Americans the vote. The women could only vote in 1920, from 1920 onwards. 7 of our states had a bill of, I don't know why I'm doing this, like you know what 7 is. Seven. 7 states. I was teaching adult ed last night, and yeah, we were all counting on our fingers, multiplying, adding, dividing, all this sort of stuff, and yeah, it was a lot. 7, 6, 5. You know, there's no shame. You know, the trick with the 9 times 2, 18. You put one finger down, and it only works with the multiples of 9 on the left.
I've never seen that in my life.
Same.
Okay, so if you
This is a math class.
if you want to find multiples of 9, and I have to do it this way, so I mean nobody throw anything at me while I'm turned around. We want 9 times 1, 9. 9 fingers are to the right. 9 times 2, 18. 1 finger's here. I have 8 left. 3, 27, and so on and so forth. It only works with multiples of 9.
Just increase
How do you
the,
find that out?
I started out as an embedded classroom tutor, and the guy who taught Math 1 before me showed it to me. And I was like, that's a neat trick.
I just increase the first number and decrease the second number.
Yeah, you could do that too.
It just makes more
But
sense.
the finger trick, no, 18, 27, 36. That seems to be easier and more easily comprehended and understood. So now you know how to do multiples of 9. Let's get back to Constitution. So, 7 states, 7 had a Bill of Rights, and others had clauses addressing freedom of the press, religion, a right to a fair trial, consent to taxation, protection against general search warrants, the whole works. So we have dual constitutionalism. We have a system of dual constitutionalism. So the federal government, the states, their co-sovereign powers. We addressed this when we talked about federalism first thing in the semester. Ooh, a nice definition, one of importance. Wonder if that might be on the test. Dual constitutionalism.
That's in bold, it's not
Yeah. So, state constitutions establish the rights of citizens and the limitations of the government. So they recognize that the rights of the citizens that they point out are natural laws, so in divine, given by God, endowments, which cannot be taken away by any man, government, entity, etc., etc. So constitutions, in case you needed to know, you'd be reminded, they set forth roles and responsibilities of governments, establish basic institutions of the government, and establish procedures by which these institutions will operate. Which brings us to this article, talking about procedures by which these institutions will operate. Let's discuss for a moment the executive orders power that currently Governor Pritzker has. And we'll end part 1 of the video here.